Hey, everybody, and welcome back to MetaCast. I'm John.
Hey everyone, I'm Maya.
And we are going deep on the new Superman movie trailer.
Mm.
I mean, everyone's talking about this thing.
Oh, absolutely. And it's no wonder with James Gunn at the helm. You know, the Guardians of the Galaxy guy.
Right, the Guardians of the Galaxy. So is this like a whole new DC Universe thing or what?
Yeah, the articles from Kotaku, Polygon, The Verge, and IGN all seem to agree on that. This is the start of something big for DC.
So not just a new Superman, a whole new direction for DC.
Exactly. And with Gunn's signature style, you can bet it's going to be a wild ride.
Okay, so less brooding, more quips, maybe a talking raccoon. I'm kidding.
Well, maybe not a raccoon, but the sources do point out that Gunn loves to blend humor and action. So we might see a Superman who's a little more lighthearted, a little more self-aware.
Interesting. So who are we actually going to see in this new universe? I know The Verge had that big cast list.
Well, first and foremost, we've got David Cornwell as Clark Kent and Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane. But here's the twist. This isn't your typical origin story. Superman's already been active for a while, so we're meeting him at a different stage in his journey.
Yeah, IGN was saying he's already faced some serious challenges even before this movie starts.
Right, and those challenges seem to have shaped him in some pretty profound ways. Like, remember that shot in the trailer where he's holding what looks like a destroyed Kelex?
Kelex. Now, for those who need a refresher.
Kelex is Superman's robotic assistant from the Fortress of Solitude, kind of a link to his Kryptonian past. Seeing him seemingly destroyed suggests Superman's already dealt with some heavy losses, maybe even failures.
So this isn't the invincible Boy Scout we're used to. This Superman has some baggage.
Definitely. And that baggage seems to be adding a layer of vulnerability we haven't really seen before.
Speaking of baggage, Kotaku went deep on Lex Luthor, with Nicholas Hoult taking on the role. But they said Gunn's going for a more nuanced portrayal.
Oh, absolutely. Polygon had a whole thing about that. They're suggesting this Lex Luthor is more of a tragic figure, a genius who truly believes he's doing the right thing, even if his methods are, well, twisted.
Hold on. A sympathetic Lex Luthor? How does that even work? The guy's a classic supervillain.
Right, but that's what makes it so interesting. Polygon even mentioned that Gunn's drawing inspiration from the All-Star Superman comics, where Lex is almost like a sorcerer obsessed with proving he's smarter than Superman.
It's not just about power, it's about ego. This is like a battle of the minds now.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder if Superman's vulnerability will play into Lex's plans. Can he exploit that weakness?
That's a good point. But it's not all doom and gloom, right? We got a glimpse of Crypto the Superdog in the trailer. I gotta admit, that was a highlight for me.
Oh, for sure. The internet went crazy for Crypto. What's funny is Gunn has said this Crypto is not your typical perfectly behaved pup. He called him a pretty terrible dog, which actually lines up with how he was in the Silver Age comic.
A terrible dog with superpowers. Okay, that could either be hilarious or a complete disaster.
Right. And that Silver Age inspiration seems to be a recurring thing. IGN pointed out that Superman's facing giant monsters in this movie, like straight out of those classic over-the-top adventures.
So we've got vulnerability, a complex Lex Luthor, giant monsters, and a misbehaving Superdog. Anything else we should be watching for?
Well, it's not just a Superman and Crypto show. The trailer also showed Mr. Terrific Hawkgirl and even a Green Lantern, sporting a pretty interesting look.
Yeah, about that wig. Some interesting choices being made there. But are these just cameos, or do they actually have a role to play?
Gunn specifically said that each of these characters, especially Mr. Terrific, is integral to the plot. The whole Justice League lineup seems to be heavily inspired by the 80s Justice League International comics.
Justice League International, now, for those of us who might not be familiar.
They think Justice League, but with a lot more humor and quirky characters. They were known for their banter and their ability to work together, even though they were all so different.
Okay, so less Zack Snyder's Justice League, more Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, that seems to be the vibe. And it makes sense given Gunn's style. He loves those ensemble casts with big personalities.
So to recap, we have a vulnerable Superman, a complex Lex Luthor, a Justice League that's not afraid to crack a joke, and of course his Superdog who might just steal the show.
Don't forget the giant monsters.
Oh, right, the giant monsters.
Yeah.
Anything else from the articles that stood out to you?
You know what really caught my attention was the emphasis on Superman's inner struggle. He's not just fighting external threats, he's also grappling with his own doubts, his own sense of responsibility.
Yeah, The Verge had that quote from Gunn where he said this film is about Superman learning to be the hero the world needs him to be. So he's still figuring things out.
Exactly. He's not the finished product. He's still growing, still evolving. And that's what makes this so exciting. We're getting a glimpse into Superman's journey, not just his powers.
So we were talking about how this new Superman is maybe not as, you know, invincible as we're used to seeing.
Yeah, definitely a little rough around the edges, a
Yeah.
bit more vulnerable.
Right. And I think we were about to get into how that vulnerability could actually be like a good thing, like a strength.
Oh, absolutely. It's like if Superman's this perfect, untouchable being, it's hard for us normal people to relate to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Like he's so far removed from our experience.
exactly. But if he's struggling, if he's facing challenges we can all relate to, like loss or self-doubt, then his triumphs become even more meaningful.
Right. It makes his resilience that much more inspiring. Because he's not just this alien with superpowers. He's kind of one of us.
Exactly. And this ties back to what we were saying about the Superman already being established as a hero. It's not his first rodeo. He's been through some stuff, and that's shaped him.
Okay, so experience and some scars make sense. But does that make him a better leader? We know he's got to wrangle this whole Justice League.
Oh, that's a really good question. And IGN actually touched on that. They suggested that a Superman who's not afraid to show his vulnerability might actually be a more effective leader.
Interesting.
Because it creates an environment where it's okay for the other heroes to admit their own weaknesses to ask for help.
Right, he's leading by example, showing that even Superman has moments of doubt, makes him more human, more relatable not just to us but to the other heroes too.
Exactly. And we can't forget about the impact this could have on his relationships with other characters. Polygon had a really interesting theory about how Superman's vulnerability could affect his dynamic with Lois Lane.
Oh yeah, I'm always up for some Lois and Clark analysis. What'd they say?
Well, they pointed out that Lois is known for her strength, her independence. She doesn't need a knight in shining armor.
Right, she can handle herself.
So seeing Superman let his guard down, allowing himself to be vulnerable, could actually deepen their connection. It could create a more equal partnership.
I like that. It's like she sees him as a person, not just this symbol.
Exactly. Speaking of symbols, remember that shot of Superman holding that destroyed Helix?
Oh yeah, that was rough.
The Verge had a really good point about that scene. They said that Helix represents more than just a robot. He's a symbol of Superman's Kryptonian heritage, his lost home.
Whoa, I hadn't thought about it like that.
So seeing him destroyed suggests Superman's facing threats that could target his very identity.
It's not just about saving the world, it's about protecting who he is, where he comes from.
Exactly. And that makes those threats even more terrifying. It raises the stakes in a whole new way.
Okay, so vulnerable, relatable, facing some serious existential threats. But what about the fun stuff? Kotaku talked about the Justice League and how it's inspired by that 80s Justice League International.
Ah, yes, the JLI. A great mix of humor and action. And Gunn has said he wants this Justice League to feel like a real team. Everyone has a distinct personality, a specific role.
So no, just cameos. These characters matter.
Absolutely. They're integral to the story.
Yeah.
And how does that tie into Superman being vulnerable? Well, for one thing, he's not alone in this fight. He has a team he can rely on, people he can turn to for support.
Strength in numbers.
And remember, this Justice League is all about banter camaraderie, so maybe we'll see Superman loosen up a bit, crack a few jokes.
No, that would be refreshing.
It would, and it plays to Gunn's strengths as a director. He's known for those ensembles with great chemistry and a lot of humor.
This is starting to sound really exciting.
Yeah.
A vulnerable Superman leading this fun-loving Justice League. It's like nothing we've seen before.
It really does feel that way, and I think that's why people are so intrigued. The Superman honors the legacy, but also pushes boundaries. It's something new, something unique.
You know, going back to those articles, I'm struck by how much they all focused on Superman's humanity.
It's definitely a common thread.
And it makes me wonder if this more human Superman is exactly what we need right now.
That's a really interesting thought. Maybe in a world that feels so divided and uncertain, we need a hero who reminds us that it's okay to be vulnerable, to ask for help, to lean on each other.
Someone who shows us that strength isn't about hiding our emotions, but about acknowledging them and still choosing to do what's right.
And that's something we can all get behind.
So to answer the big question, can a more vulnerable Superman still be a symbol of hope?
I think the answer is a resounding yes. In fact, he might be an even greater symbol of hope because he's showing us that hope isn't about being invincible. It's about choosing to keep fighting for what you believe in, even when you're facing your own demons.
Well said. I think that perfectly sums up why this new Superman is so compelling, so relevant.
I can't wait to see how this new, more human Superman plays out on the big screen.
Me neither. Well, that brings us to the end of our Superman deep dive. We hope you enjoyed it and maybe even got you thinking about things in a new way.
Definitely check out those articles we mentioned if you want to explore these ideas further. Kotaku, Polygon, The Verge, and IGN.
And let us know what you think. Do you think a more vulnerable Superman can still be an effective symbol of hope? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never give up on hope.
And keep listening to MetaCast for more deep dives into pop culture and beyond. See you next time.